Good evening, my name is Andrew Masters. I live here in town. I've been a socialized teacher at the high school for almost 20 years, teaching history, government, economics, and a few other courses. I'm really pleased to be here at the request of the Democratic Town Committee and Republican Town Committee to help support this democratic process. Tonight's forum is a question and answer session for our candidates. If you have not yet filled out a card, you can, but I have some already. And Kathy Simonelli and Rick Laborious will go through those cards. For the rules of tonight's conversation, each candidate will have 3 minutes to make an opening statement. We have 2 students from the high school who will be timing for us. There'll be a yellow card that will be flashed when you have 30 seconds left, and then a red card that will be flashed to show you've reached the end of your speaking time. Obviously, we can't cut you off. We can, actually. But it's just a reminder so that you can make sure that we allow time for everyone to get in the conversation. Following that, all candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions and offer rebuttal if they feel it's necessary. All candidates do not need to answer all questions if they feel that their answer will be duplicative, and so therefore it shouldn't be construed as disinterest in the question. We're just trying to move things along. Does anybody from the audience have any questions? Am I not clear? Outstanding, thank you very much. So we're going to start with Mr. Szymanski, and we'll work our way from Mr. Szymanski down to Mr. Vaza with opening statements. Mr. Szymanski, please go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm Charlie Szymanski. I know a number of people that are here tonight, quite a few as a matter of fact. Just a little of my background for those that don't know me. I'm married to a nurse, that's a problem, and have 2 grown children who both have very successful careers. I attended the school system here from 1st grade on, and my children graduated from East Windsor High School. One of my passions in life is the St. Jude's Hospital and Research Center, which I spent some time in contributions with. I have a very successful career in corporate America. I'm working for 46 years. I've had senior leadership roles in operations, marketing, business development. And you ask, well, how did you get here? Why are you doing this? And mainly I was looking for a candidate for the board on behalf of the Democratic Town Committee. And of course, you go to people that you know and people that you think can serve and do a good job. And talking with them, I said, you know, I really don't want to do it, but Charlie, why don't you do it? You should help. And so that's kind of how I got to where I am. What my main thrusts, I've got 3 kind of key points here. And the first one, and I think you have to start with this, is that I think I bring cohesion to the board by having this business background that requires the skills of someone that has negotiation skills and skills of compromise, and that's one of the big issues that goes on in government today, from local to state to federal. It gets worse as you go along, but we need to tame that. We need to have compromise. We need to negotiate. The casino, that's a big issue. It's the biggest event that can impact this town over the next 10 years. And I feel strongly there should have been a referendum for that. I think the people should have a say. And moreover, when I discovered there was no independent financial impact study that was done to say, this is what we see that we need. Yeah, there was information that was passed by the different organizations, the police department, the fire, and so forth, but someone from an outside source that was paid to do this and have a valuation of one against the other, which one is more correct, maybe they're both the same. I don't know if $3 million is the right number. I don't think anybody here can say that it is, only based upon what was handed into the Board of Selectmen. So I think that's an issue, and we need to have somebody on the board that has a better understanding of the business issues and has experience in that area of negotiations. The expansion in the town is critical, and one of the things that we need to look at is having independent audits of each of the operating units within the town, whether it's the police, fire, whatever's getting funding, they should have some type of independent audit. When I look at a report and in the charter, when I read the charter, you read that they only examine, quote, the books, which are in the town hall. What about procedures? Procedural audits, which are done in every business, and they should be done here, because I don't believe that's ever been done. Somebody independent to do that. You look at our school population, and it's just over 1,000. And when I graduated high school in 1966, my graduation class was 145. So the population has decreased. Technology has increased significantly, so we should be taking advantage of what that technology brings to reduce our costs. We look at a 2% increase, well, that's pretty good, only got 2%. However, people are on a fixed income. People say that you are on a fixed income if you're retired. Everybody's on a fixed income. You go to your boss and say that...
If you wouldn't mind wrapping up.
Okay.
Thank you.
You can't go to your boss and say, I need another $1,000 for taxes. Everybody's on a fixed income, and I believe we need to take measures to reduce our mill rate to keep people here and make it more attractive. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Richards?
Hi, I'm Jim Richards, and for over 30 years I've worn many hats in service to the community. The list of items is quite lengthy. I was even told to shorten it for advertising purposes for this campaign. But what really qualifies me for a position as a selectman is the 2 terms that I served, 4 years. The 12 years on the Economic Development Commission, and if you read the Plan of Conservation and Development, I was the subcommittee that wrote the Economic Development Commission's program, which tied all the different groups together, planning and zoning, etc. Most recently, I served the last 2 years on the Board of Finance, filling in for my good friend Bob Little, who passed. I was asked to by the town, and I stepped up. It turned out to be a functional board. It managed to get 2 budgets passed in the last 2 years, which we were told it can't be done, and we did it. Even when we were handed a 4% increase from the Board of Selectmen, from the gentlemen and folks that said they were going to reduce your taxes, which if a politician tells you they're going to reduce taxes, I don't want to say it's a lie, but it's fraudulent. We can stabilize our taxes through commercial economic growth. Reducing taxes with what's going on with the state and what's going on the federal level, just look closer at it, please. And in the last 11 years, I've served as the executive director of our local chamber of commerce, bringing businesses to town, stepping in when the town has failed in certain capacities to businesses, and worked with them. My guiding principles, there's 4 of them. 1, is it the truth? And those that know me, I'm an ex-Rotarian of 25 years. In my household, that's the basic rule of anything. Will it benefit the entire community? Can't just benefit one special group. It has to benefit everyone. Which brings me to number 3. Public money should never be used for private interests. Public money is our money, the taxpayers' money, the town's money. It's not private interest's money. And the 4th, I probably mentioned already, is stabilizing taxes through commercial economic growth. I really believe in that. I've believed in that for over 30 years when I got behind building the sewer plant. The first priorities of government are providing public safety, maintaining and creating new infrastructure, improving and promoting education. And I do believe with some long-term planning and by working together as a team, the next Board of Selectmen has the greatest of opportunities to get East Windsor to provide us all with a great future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richard.
Good evening. Obviously, my name is Dale Nelson. That's what the tag says here. I presently serve the community on the Board of Selectmen, and I'm asking for your support on Tuesday, November 7th. Community First is a... I didn't do it. support this through the Rotary four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? If I can answer yes to all four of those, I'm comfortable supporting whatever has been put before me. I proudly serve the town of East Windsor as Ethics Chair, Board of Finance, Capital Improvement, Youth Center, Public Works, Labor Negotiations, Emergency Management Advisory Council, and the Pension Board. I feel with my considerable experience that will assist me in the future planning for East Windsor. I believe in attending as many meetings and events as possible so that I will interface with our residents so that they can tell me what they think, give me ideas. As a member of the Board of Selectmen, we serve as liaisons to other boards and commissions. During the last 2 years, I've had public safety and the Board of Education, which meets twice a month. For achievements, well, I've been married to Cliff for 25 years. Let's put that out there. I am the proud recipient of a Paul Harris Fellow, an award given to note service above self. The award was presented to me by the East Windsor Rotary, of which I am a past president. I enjoy spending time on Abby's Helping Hand, a nonprofit organization that assists to improve the quality of life for those afflicted with mitochondrial and other diseases through support, education, and research. Please help me and our team on November 7th to continue Community First, so the commitment to East Windsor citizens will be there to plan for our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Nelson. Mr. Leach.
Hi, I'm Bob Leach. I'm a Republican candidate for Selectman. I'm also one of your police commissioners. I've been serving for the last 4 years. In addition to police commission, I've served on Park and Rec for 5 years, capital improvement planning for 2 years, Scout Hall Committee for 7 years, and I've been Scoutmaster of your East Windsor Troop Boy Scouts for the last 10 years. I believe I can bring the change we need to the incoming Board of Selectmen. It's my intention to work proactively, planning ahead for the upcoming changes in our future. I always maintain an objective view, and I work towards producing positive results. I enjoy working with my fellow candidates on both sides of the aisle, and I'm happy to call them all my friends. We need to work together to solve the issues we face today. And with your vote, I'd be honored to do just that. Don't just hope for change, vote for it.
Thank you, Mr. Leach. Mr. King.
Good evening. My name is David King, and obviously I'm here running for Board of Selectmen in East Windsor. Since 2012, I've served as a volunteer on the Pension Board and as chairman of the Board of Assessment Appeals here in town. Additionally, I'm involved in a local professional community through the Hartford Young Professionals and Entrepreneurs, as well as the Hartford Hospital Young Leaders Advisory Council. Professionally, I've been working in wealth management since 2005. Currently, I'm a vice president at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, locally here in Connecticut. I spent...
Can you speak up, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
All right.
There you go.
Currently, I spent over a decade listening to and helping folks determine what they need to do to retire and what sort of challenges they will face. I'm running for the Board of Selectmen because the current uncertainty in Hartford makes it important now more than ever that we have effective and professional leaders in our local government. Our leaders need to be in touch with the current standards in innovation and aware of how businesses need to operate in an ever-competitive environment. They need to be open to new ways of doing things and be able to increase efficiencies in our towns and our schools, as we are so often asked to do more with less and less resources. On top of this, they need to have empathy and thoughtfulness. We have a duty to listen to our citizens and to work to help preserve their homes, their neighborhoods, and the environment that we raise our children in. Most importantly, they need to be impartial and have integrity and transparency. All too often, I see leaders who lack these qualities and have a desire to put their thumb on the scale to benefit their friends or their own interests. This behavior should not have a place in leadership. These following qualities are what I hope to bring to the East Windsor Board of Selectmen: professionalism, innovation, efficiency, empathy, and integrity. I have no hidden agenda, predetermined notion for running for the Board of Selectmen. Simply believe that it is our civic duty as Americans to join together with our fellow citizens and help make the communities where we live a better place for everyone. That's why I ask for your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Hoffman.
My name is Andy Hoffman. I'm a lifelong member or resident of the town of East Windsor. I'm deeply concerned about the gridlock that exists at all levels of government. That shouldn't be. The words compromise and respect have disappeared from the government, from government. There's a lot wrong with that. To make things happen, you have to have common goals, you have to work the problem, you have to discuss it, and you have to be willing to compromise. Nothing is black and white, ever black and white. I worked in the private sector for all my life. In that environment, there are great complexities, there are problems, they are met on a daily basis, and they're fixed. They're fixed because people are willing to work together. As I see it, people in government don't like to work together. I graduated from the University of Connecticut in 1953 with a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering. I joined Hamilton Standard that same year. I had the opportunity to work in the U.S. Manned Space Program. My tenure in that program covered the Apollo, Skylab, Space Shuttle, and Space Station programs. I think the finest hour for the space program and the most memorable thing in my working lifetime was the rescue of the Apollo 13 crew. The Hamilton Standard played a very major role in that. It was our lunar module life support system that allowed the people in that crew to return safely to Earth. I retired from Hamilton Standard in 1986. After retirement, I started a consulting company, East Windsor Associates. A friend of mine at Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California once defined a consultant for me. It's a person from 25 miles away who no one knows, who offers information that no one wants or needs. I did that for 12 years. The client list I had included NASA, the aerospace industry, UTC, Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, Lockheed, companies like that. In addition to that, I did work for the National Academy of Science and the State of Connecticut's Economic Development Commission. I'm running for the Board of Selectmen because I want to make a difference. I believe I can be a voice of reason. I can bring the compromise that's required to the board. Nothing is ever black and white. It's shades of gray. And maybe I can help bring the board to look at those shades of gray. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Dearborn.
Hi, my name is Steve Dearborn. I'm a lifelong resident of East Windsor. I've never had a job. I've always been self-employed since I was a teenager. I was a farmer in town. I still farm a little bit today. I own many businesses. I've hired many people in this town. I went to school in East Windsor. Spent my last 2 years at Rockville for VOAG. I grew 500 acres of crops and over 1,000 acres of custom work for other farmers. Today I have 4 businesses going. I'm self-employed. I make my work. I make sure I can support my family. But I think these qualities make me a good selectman because I believe I'm a good businessman. I have to make decisions every day. I have to go out and I have to make deals with the people I deal with. And like Mr. Hoffman said, people in government don't seem to want to cooperate with each other. But you got to cooperate with each other. The federal, the state, and the local governments are businesses. They need to be run like a business. You don't need somebody, like in my business, I have to give them a pink slip, lay them off. It's the way it works. I've been on the Board of Selectmen now for 2 terms. I plan on staying with it as long as the people in East Windsor will elect me. My wife says, why do you want to keep doing this? And going through all of the aggravation and everything that happens at a lot of these meetings. I says, because somebody has to do it. Somebody with some common sense has to sit up on that board and try to make things work. If you've noticed my signs, I'm supporting a Democrat and I'm supporting an unaffiliated to sit beside me at that table. And that tells you right there, I don't care if you're a Republican or who you are. I'm going to work with you if it's for the best of the town, the best for the people here. The other thing I want to touch on is this casino that's coming to town. This is history in the making for us, folks. We're all involved. We all should be proud that we're part of this thing. This is the biggest thing that's ever hit this town. The new Walmart was the first thing to come to town, I think, in 15 or 20 years. Nothing's happened in East Windsor. This is going to make things happen. People know where I stand with the ordinance that we just had. And we need to decide. It's going to be the biggest job of the next board to figure out how we're going to use that money and how to make it work for the people of East Windsor. And I want your vote again. I want to be your selectman again from now and maybe forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dearborn. Mr. Bowser?
Good evening. My name is Jason Bauza, and I'm hoping to earn your support for another term as a member of East Windsor's Board of Selectmen. Now more than ever, I believe that we need to put our community first. I've spent the last 4 years as a member of East Windsor's Board of Selectmen, and for 6 years before that, I was on the Board of Finance, serving 2 of those years as chairman. But as we look ahead to the next 2 years, we certainly are going to have big challenges and big opportunities that we're all going to have to face as a community together. The casino is certainly a big challenge and a big opportunity, but also are the implications on the town of what's going on in Hartford with the state budget and how we're going to have to cope with whatever decisions they make in Hartford and what their implications here will be. I believe that it's important that we elect reasonable leaders who make decisions based on facts. My governing philosophy is the same as the philosophy that was instilled in me when I was a child, and many have heard me say this before, but I'll repeat it because it's true. I believe that you need to do your best. I believe that you need to treat other people the way you'd like to be treated, and I believe that you need to do the right thing. That is something that is absolutely at my core. It was instilled in me by my parents when I was a child, and it's what I apply when we make decisions as elected officials. I am committed to our town. I have been committed to our town since I first took office 10 years ago, and if re-elected, I will continue to be committed to East Windsor because I believe that we do need to put our community first. I hope I have earned your vote on November 7th.
Thank you very much. Hold on. Thank you very much. We're going to start. There's a lot of questions, so I'm going to ask all the candidates to pay careful attention to the cards. And when you see the red card, please try to make sure you wrap up in the next few seconds because I've got about 18 or 20 cards in front of us and we have a limited amount of time. I'm going to start down here on the end with Mr. Szymanski again. And the first card, the first question actually in the pile sort of fits in with what a lot of the candidates have been talking about, and perhaps they can provide some enlightened ideas. The resident writes, the town is splintered. Democrats versus Republicans, crew versus those who advocate for budget increases, those who support the schools, those who want to cut them, etc. How do you propose to build unity in this community? Mr. Szymanski?
Building unity within the community. Each board, I think, is very visible, and you're in the news when you have a meeting, things come up, and the fights that go on, the uncooperativeness among some of the members, and certainly in the Board of Selectmen, that is what we have been seeing and reading about for some time now. And I think it's the individuals themselves that, if there's no individuals on the board, that will work together to bring about that unity, because what you say, what you display, is what goes home, is what people think. Well, there's calmness there, they're working together, there's things that are getting done, and the other things will sort of fall in line as you go along. And we see it on a federal level every day. Trump makes some statement, and then, you know, it's contradicted. We're getting away from really what the issue is. And I think that's the point I want to make. Get to where the issue is and get away from what's going on in somebody's personal agenda.
Thank you. Mr. Richards?
How do you propose to build unity is the question, correct?
Indeed.
That's actually what I spend a living doing. I build unity between towns, businesses. My operation with the East Windsor Chamber of Commerce is spent working with Tobacco Valley Chamber Alliance, North Central Chamber Alliance. I think the best way to build unity is what you might have seen happen on the Board of Finance this year. Everyone had their opinion listened to. Everyone had their thoughts brought forth. And then we voted. And if you lost a vote, and my chairman will tell you, I lost a few. You sat there and you said, well, we did our best, let's move on to the next question. And I think that's how you build unity within the town, is we all have to work together. I spent the last year being the Community Day chairman, not by choice, it was kind of thrown upon me. And that whole day is about unity, diversity, coming together. So that's pretty much a hallmark of what I do for a living. So that's what I would be bringing to the table.
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson?
To build unity, you have to be able to listen with an open heart. You can't go into anything closed-minded. You can't go into anything with preconceptions. So I think listening is the first key to building unity. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Leach?
I think my reputation speaks for itself, and I think most of the candidates here can agree that I can work across aisles and work to come to solutions. I do notice that just recently in the paper, my name is in the paper, and an article written about me from somebody from a member of a special interest group. And what's important to know is that I am also the chairman of the Republican Town Committee. I don't know if many people know that, but I am. And I know in that article, one of the things that was mentioned in there was the change in the rules of the Republican Town Committee and how we select our candidates. I might note that that same change in the rules is also made in the Democrats, their town committee also, but for the same reasons. The idea was to protect the process and work towards the goal of doing the right thing. Many have chastised me for that, and because it was done under my leadership, that it's been the vote of the committee. I did not vote on that. It was voted by the committee, and it was a majority vote. Only 2 dissensions. So as far as working to come to solutions, it's something I always endeavor to do. And there again, to build unity, it's something I've always worked to do. And there again, the fellow candidates here that work with me can attest to that. Thanks.
Mr. King?
Absolutely. So, can everyone hear me? Great. So to build unity, as Dale mentioned, you definitely have to listen, and that's very important. But also, you need to go a step beyond that, and that's what good leaders will do. Because oftentimes on boards, people don't want to speak up. So they go home and they feel that their voice hasn't been heard. A good leader will ask those people their opinion and encourage them to speak up so that they feel that they're part of the process. Those are some of the qualities that I hope to bring to the board.
Mr. Hoffman?
I'd like to relate bringing people to a unified position by talking a little bit about the space program. It was a high-risk program. We had people's lives in our hand. We ran into a lot of unknown. We had to have a plan that was agreed to by everybody. So the first thing we did is we defined the problem. if you can define a problem, you can probably fix it. The next thing we did is we asked ourselves, what kind of resources do we have to work that problem? Understanding that, we developed a plan. And the plan had a lot of, if it doesn't work, you have to do this. If it doesn't, if it does work, you do this. It was a logic diagram. Don't want to make this too scientific or anything like that, but that does work when you look at that kind of thing. Now, having said all of that, I'll go back to my original statement. All of this requires people to think, discuss, and compromise, because the requirements are never all that clear, and the solution must be. It must have a unified approach to things, or else it all falls apart. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dearborn.
Yeah, hi. You know, in the past 2 years, you're speaking about unity. You really haven't had that much unity, if any at all, on the Board of Selectmen. People said that we never got anything done, and I made comments that I agree with that we couldn't get anything done. There was no unity there. Unity's got to start at the Board of Selectmen, so it trickles down to your boards and commissions. And, you know, I'm just hoping we get the right team where we can sit down and make decisions quick. Don't keep pushing them off for 15 meetings, and move on to important things. Okay, that's where it's got to start. It's got to start at the Board of Selectmen, because the people are disgusted right now with us, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them for being disgusted, because we don't get anything done. So I'm just asking you to make sure you vote for the right crew, and let's get things done in East Windsor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowser.
So I think one of the things that's important to remember is that whether it be at local, state, or even at the national level, that the issues that unite people are more powerful and more plentiful than the issues that divide people. They tend to stand out simply because that's where you have passions and tempers and ideologies that tend to flare. But by and large, if you look at the voting members of Congress, you see Congress, mind you, who has a 14% approval rating. They vote unanimously on 75% of the issues that they face, but those things never get reported. The things that get reported are the things that are sexier, the things that are confrontational, the things that sell what used to be newspapers. Now I suppose it's ad space. So I start from that point by saying that the things that unite us are more powerful and more plentiful than the things that divide us. I think that I'll tell you, in the last 4 years as I've been a selectman, I try to approach any issue with an open mind. I try to make sure that the decisions that we make are guided by facts. I try to keep in mind that we represent the entire community, and that there are going to be some times where a portion of that community may not agree with the decisions that I or we or all of us make. But if you are guided by facts and coming with an open mind, that's okay. And that's what representative government is supposed to be about. And every 2 or 4 or 6 years, the people who hold public office will appear before you, and you get to decide whether or not those decisions that were made based on facts and with an open mind merit sending somebody back for another term. I believe that a 3-2 decision on the Board of Selectmen is just as powerful as a 5-0 decision on the Board of Selectmen, because that's what democracy is. It's majority rule. It doesn't have to be unanimity rule. There is place for disagreeing opinions, and I think that's actually healthy in terms of crafting a better outcome. And lastly, I would just say that as a mentor of mine who was a former state senator from Litchfield County, was very, very good at settling for half a loaf. And when he would reach across the table from somebody else he was serving with in the legislature, having cut a deal and shaking your hand, he would keep his word. And that's what I think will go towards establishing unity. Is we need to be held accountable and keep our word.
Thank you very much. There's some questions that all revolve around the casino issue, and I'm going to try and get all those together to consolidate soon. We're going to kind of get into the weeds with the next question. The next question comes from a citizen that asks, how does the town make decisions about sewer use fees? Why do we have a flat sewer fee? They believe it should be based on water consumption. A single person paying the same as a family of 2, 3, or 4 does not seem fair, and many towns seem to have sewer bills based on consumption. I'm not quite sure how much information we can offer this citizen, but hopefully we can offer them some answer. Mr. Richards.
Yeah, actually, the Water Pollution Control
Microphone.
Authority I served on many years ago when we built the sewer plant. The sewer fees are based upon usage. There's a formula that you can check with WPCA. They make the decisions. Paul Anderson, are you in the room? He's the chairman. He's the guy to ask that question of. Does that answer that, Paul? About sewer fees, user fees? I believe that's the total answer. They are a quasi-town agency which they operate under their own auspices. They have a board and they make their own money and they spend their own money and maintain their building.
So this citizen ought to speak to the WPCA then?
The WPCA would be who to talk to. I believe they meet once a month, right?
The last Wednesday of the month.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that can weigh in on that, or we go for that one? All right, let's go to town management then. This is Nelson, you be next. If the Board of Selectmen were to hire a new financial planner, director of finance, or a treasurer, someone like that, what should some of the qualifications and job description be like? And also, would you be able to comment on remuneration?
Would you repeat that, please?
If the Board of Selectmen were to hire a new financial planner, director of finance, or treasurer, what should be the qualification for that person? What would be in the job description? And what do you think would be appropriate remuneration?
First of all, one of the qualities that seems to be lacking from what has been brought forward to the Board of Selectmen is any municipal training. Municipality is very different than regular, the municipal setup is very different from your home setup, so that's one thing. You also need to be able to go for bond issues. You also need to be able to do more than just a CPA and a financial background. You need to have labor negotiations, that was the other one. So you need to have a strong background. The job description that we have presently maybe needs a little more teeth in it. And as far as the salary should commence with what the actual person is, how they're qualified. If they meet all the criteria that's set forth in the job description, I would then be comfortable. And we were told that we can't find a treasurer for $80,000. We're told that maybe we have to get a financial planner in the $100,000, $110,000 range. So, and we can't afford it.
Thank you. Mr. Leach?
I really can't speak with authority as to what the requirements would be, and I've never even delved into the situation, even knowing that we are looking for a town treasurer. I would have to assume that what we're offering for pay in this particular instance is probably not enough from what I can understand from everything I've read. So, given that, I'll pass the question.
Thank you. Mr. Kane?
Great, yeah. A lot of what Dale covered is absolutely relevant. Municipal finance is much different than corporate and personal finance. Jumping quickly to remuneration, I know that our own actuary has told us that we are way under budget. So I do think that we're probably going to be looking at a scaling salary and adjusting the salary based on how many of the criteria that the candidate could fit and going from there. I personally would like to see some sort of client-facing or possibly some sales experience, because you are going to be in pension negotiations, and you do have to be a little bit of a go-getter to go out there and chase big issues. So,
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman?
It has to be someone from the public sector. it's a different type of work when you're in industry versus being in the public sector. I think we should hire someone young enough so they will stay at a salary which is high enough so that we can keep them. And I don't know what that number is, but it should be easy to find out by surveying other towns around us. It would be good if we could hire somebody local. I would love to see someone come out of our community that has a capability and a credentials to handle that job, because the likelihood of keeping them is much higher. A long time ago, Harry Gray once told us that he would not allow us to hire engineering kids from California, Texas, and so on. He gave us 5 schools, and he was a smart guy. He said, I made a survey, and these kids out of these schools stay with us. The other ones we educate for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and they go home. That's the worst thing in the world.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dearborn.
Hi. Sitting on the board, I've seen applications come across. The problem with East Windsor is we don't want to pay anything. We get people put in applications that are not qualified, or we're like the training school. East Windsor seems to get a lot of people here that has to be trained for the jobs that they take. We need to step up to the plate, hire somebody that has municipal knowledge of being a treasurer. And we need to hire people that we can keep them. The problem is we don't pay enough money here. And there was a survey done that showed that on an average pay, we would have to pay somewhere around $100,000, $110,000 to be in line with the rest of the towns around us. So we've got to step up to the plate. We don't pay here. We don't pay. And with the casino coming in, this person's going to have a big job. So you've got to have someone that knows what they're doing. We don't have time to train anybody here. They've got to come here and know it from the day they walk through the door. And that's how I feel about us. Let's step up to the plate and start paying for some real professionals. Because down the road, we will be able to afford it. Maybe not today, but we're going to have to do it today and get the job done. That's what we got to do.
Thank you, Mr. Dearborn. Mr. Bowser.
So some of the things that I'm looking for as we look for a new treasurer include familiarity with municipal budgeting practices, familiarity with pension investment laws and regulations, CPFO and GFOA certifications, experience in labor and pension negotiations, ability to manage staff, ability to manage conflict, understanding of payroll and procurement, understanding of public bonding. Those are some of the things that you would expect to find in somebody who's administering upwards of $40 million a year. In terms of compensation, I think that it should be commensurate with experience. And I think that there has to be some understanding that there needs to be a scale. And I'm not really comfortable commenting with press in the room as to what a number would be, because as soon as we do that, that becomes our floor anytime we finally find somebody. And as soon as you throw a number out there, you're never going to be able to get somebody below that number. So that puts us at a disadvantage. And I would leave it as just saying it should be commensurate with experience, and certainly looking at what other similar communities, not necessarily those just around us, but communities similar in terms of grand list size and population and geographic location, in terms of proximity to cities and highways. Those are the types of communities that I would look for to see what that salary range ought to be.
Thank you very much. In that same vein, we have another question from a citizen who asks, do you think we need professional management for the town of East Windsor with the casino on the horizon? What steps and or changes need to be taken to implement this? So it's about professional management, and Mr. Leach, you are first.
Yes, I do.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, my apologies, I did not come back around to the other side. Thanks, Jim. Charlie, go ahead, please.
Okay. Regarding the treasurer's position, obviously you need someone that is a CPA and has the other skills that you're looking for that job. I don't know what research was done about towns that are similar size and similar budgets and what they're paying them throughout the state and in Western Mass, and to give you some gauge as to what direction you should be in, whether you're really too low or the people that are applying are just looking for way too much money. In addition to that, the public accounting firm that the town hires to do the audits, that could be a source going to them. Do you know someone that might be interested in this, because they would have that kind of experience with municipalities? Many times they have people that they want to move on to something else rather than staying in that accounting firm. Also, these companies that have moved are moving out of the lower part of the state to Boston, that have a lot of finance people in them that may not want to take that move and may take a lower pay cut to stay within the state, but yet come to live in a community like ours, because the cost of living is significantly different here than it is in Fairfield County. There's a lot of sources of people, and we need to reach out to those sources.
Thank you very much. Mr. Richards.
My feelings on it is, first of all, it's a lot of money, and with what we get allowed for a budget, the 110, 120, I'd like to know where I'm going to take it from. What department, what service are we going to cut? That's the first comment. As far as the paying of the person, I agree with Jason Bowser. We shouldn't really be talking about numbers in front of the public. It ties our hands for further negotiation. And lastly, you're going to ask it, and I was thinking it while you were asking the other question. It was kind of bizarre. I'd rather see us hire a regular treasurer and move toward a town administrator. Many folks feel that can't be done with the charter, but the charter talks about things that have nothing to do with the town administrator. That can be a person hired by the Board of Selectmen, does not have to involve the charter, and I'd rather see, if we're going to take money from other services and other places in town to hire someone, I think that's what we need, so that we have professional management of the town on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you very much. Ms. Nelson.
No, but I
good?
already answered that one.
Okay, good. Then we will move on to the professional. We'll move on to the professional management question again. We'll start with Mr. Leach. Let me just rephrase the question quickly. Do you think we need professional management for the town of East Windsor with all the things that are on the horizon? And what steps or changes should be taken to implement this?
Yes, sooner or later, we'll reach the breaking point where we are unable to elect qualified officials. Given the complexities of a growing town and poor economic climate, I believe that we need to have a serious discussion about this issue. It's coming on the horizon sooner than we can think. Similar situation with our firefighters. It's the same thing where we can't find qualified professionals that we need. We can't afford to pay them the amounts that we need to pay them to keep them. It's something that's on the horizon in a very near future. I believe we need to do this, yes.
Thank you. Mr. King.
I agree with Mr. Leach here that we will quickly approach the point where there will be a benefit to paying someone to manage these things for a couple of reasons. They'll be impartial, and by collecting the paychecks, they will be, they'll have accountability for what they do, and they won't be swung toward politics. So I do think that is a benefit of this. And obviously, there are drawbacks, which include the cost of hiring someone for what we're all volunteering to do right now. So you do have to weigh these two things. One of the other things I do think that will help, though, is that by paying someone to do this job, is that they'll be pushed to be innovative. One of the things that bothers me is our town website. For Community Day, I wanted to log onto the website and find the flyer, and the link didn't work. I mean, if I'm a business and I go to a town website and I'm thinking about doing business in that town and the information's not there, I'm just going to move on. That's the reality of today's world. It's competitive. You need to have information available all the time. So.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Hoffman.
I do indeed believe that we should have we need a professional because we are competing with towns around us who have professional management. As part of the Economic Development Commission a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to go out and talk to businesses in town. I took that farther. I talked to the Economic Development Director and the town managers in South Windsor, Windsor, and Enfield. It was clear to me that having a professional who knows their way around state government, who knows where to look for things like grant money, and who is a full-time person who can go to meetings and conferences and make the kind of crisp decisions that are required. Decisions are required in a timely manner or they're worthless. So, yes, I do. And how would I do it? I would go out and I would run a survey. The people I talked to in South Windsor, Windsor, and Enfield were very gracious. I do believe if you went out and talked to a half a dozen towns around here, you could find out what the correct parameters are and when to make that decision. But it's soon. With the casino coming, there'll be more money available. I believe that much of that, some of that, should go into economic development, hiring an economic development director. That now brings with it the ability to bring additional tax-bearing companies into town.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dearborn.
Yes, I believe we need to get some real professionals here. I recall the charter won't let you hire a town manager, but you could have a town administrator. And I guess the Board of Selectmen could write the job description for that. And we do need somebody that's a real professional to run things. I mean, he'll negotiate things. So, from what I understand, and other people I've talked to, these guys can, do the whole thing for us. They'll get involved in the union contracts, possibly bring down the attorney fees by getting things squared away before it gets too far out of whack. These guys are supposed to be professionals. And again, we're going to have to pay up. We got to pay up. And that's East Windsor's problem. We don't want to pay up. We think we're going to get somebody for nothing here. But yes, I want to see a professional. I want to see a professional running this town in the best of the best. And we should be able to afford that real soon. Once we get that, things are going to change. We can get people in here, get more businesses coming. This guy will know how to do it. This guy will know how to do it. And that's what we need to do. Because things are going to move so fast here within the next few years. Like it was said, the Board of Selectmen, we're not going to be on top of it because it's going to move so fast on us. So we really need to get someone here that's going to know where to go and what to do at the spur of a moment here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dearborn. Mr. Bowser.
So I believe in citizen government. I believe in the wisdom of the voters, and I think that the voters will pick the leaders that are appropriate for the town and for the times. And I think that sometimes I agree with who those choices are, and sometimes I don't. But I think that the wisdom of the voters is something that is actually fundamental to our form of government. I'm sorry, am I not being clear? I'm getting this, well. I also think that under the charter as it's written, it's going to be very difficult to bring on somebody who has the skills that everybody agrees would be great to see at a price that anybody is going to want to take that job. So I think that, the conversation really has to become a wholesale one about whether or not our charter is doing the town any justice, and look at the questions that arises, including our form of government. But certainly there are some serious limitations that are imposed based on that document that would be very difficult for us to overcome.
Thank you. Mr. Szymanski.
I believe that we need to move quickly, as many have said here. I think that it should be one of the first orders of business with the new board. No matter what you lay out, what you think you're going to do, someone won't be in that role until 19, 20. It's going to be quite a ways down the road. Before you figure out all the bureaucracy with the charter and attorneys, town meetings, going through then, laying it out what you want them to do, and then go through the selection process and the advertising. You're looking at mid-2019. So I do think it should be put at the top of the list because it is necessary. It's come to that point. There's the casino, I think, has driven that. I probably wouldn't be saying this if the casino wasn't here because it's not that big. But now that's going to have a different impact.
Thank you. Mr. Richards.
I think that most of what the folks have said down the table, I don't want to have to repeat, but I do think that East Windsor is growing. I think we are probably going to be the next hot spot for the area. We're going to be the linchpin that revitalizes the economics of the area. And I believe that at some point in the near future, we will need a town manager, but I believe that we don't need to change the charter to do it. I believe the Board of Selectmen have the authority to create a job, call it a town administrator, and hopefully we can find some money to do it, because that's the key with hiring a financial officer, a town administrator, is the money. And if you looked at last year's budget, there's people that were cut, we didn't want to cut them, and it's because of money. And that's what we're looking at for that kind of position. We need to start thinking beyond. Once the casino's in and we're getting that money, that's probably the time, and Mr. Szymanski's probably right with his timing on it.
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson.
May I make one comment?
Why don't we let Mrs. Nelson answer, and then you can comment afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, I believe that this town has evolved now into where we need a professional manager. This casino has put us into a whole different bracket. We need somebody at the helm that's watching what's going on and being able to negotiate on a daily basis things that need to be done. With that said, the problem is that we can't get a budget passed. Whenever we try to add money to a position or update or upgrade, we can't pass a budget. So if we can't pass a budget, folks, we can't add any professionals right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman, go ahead.
I don't mean to minimize the importance of a town charter, but it's only paper. It would seem to me that we should now start the process. If we believe, indeed, that there should be a town manager, we should start the process now to change the charter so that when the right time arrives, we can move.
Thank you very much. Since the topic of the casino came up, there's a couple questions about the casino. I'm going to try and wrap them together. Broadly, the questions have to do with preparation before the casino comes to town and contingencies once the casino comes to town. Things like mitigation, added to the budget, of course. Things like they mentioned the Broadbrook Library and Teen Center, specifically here in Broadbrook, and I'm sure broadly in the Warehouse Point area as well. For this question, we'll start with Mr. King.
So, just to kind of give a quick overview, in case anyone is unaware, the way the casino money is currently projected to break down is roughly $5.5 to $6 million via fixed assessment on the building, and then $3 million a year via what they're calling an impact payment. So it's going to be somewhere between $8.5 and $9 million. The $5.5 to $6 should clearly go into the general fund and be used to help lower taxes in town and go through the budgetary process for things like East Windsor Library, whatever services that the folks in this town deem necessary that they want to see those funds spent on. The $3 million in the impact payment, I do believe that we need to be smart about that. for a variety of reasons. The casino's not here yet, and it could always leave. So I do think it makes sense to keep that out of the budgetary process because, as Mr. Richards says, it's very difficult to get things passed, and once it goes in there, I don't think you'll see it come out. And if the casino were to leave, that would cause some serious issues for our budget in this town and the taxpayers. I also do think that not all the impact from hosting a casino is going to be visible on day one. I think we're going to see things that are going to show up 2-3 years down the road, and it would be great if we could not have to go to the taxpayers for that and have money set aside, almost like a rainy day fund.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Hoffman.
I believe that we should prioritize and time phase the activities that have to be changed because of the casino impact on the town. I believe that impact money should be dealt with separately from the general fund and should never be commingled with the general fund. There are things that should be done, security, for example, but I do believe it should be done on a just-in-time basis. The Japanese auto industry made millions by having just-in-time inventory. There is no sense in having a resource sit around not being used. So I believe that we have to put together a plan. We have to understand the time phasing for it, and we then have to fund it out of the impact money. Any money that is not used for on a given fiscal year should be put into a fund, never touched or never transferred into the general fund and used for impact money in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Dearborn.
Most people know how I stand on this. I'm not for buying anything until it's broken. That's how I look at this. Everybody refers the money from the casino as the impact fund. The tribes told us we could do what we want with that money. And I'm not for hiring new law enforcement until there's a problem. I don't believe the problem that everybody says we're going to have is even going to happen. I'm for waiting and seeing. And some of that money, a little bit, maybe should be put aside every year. The excess should go back in the general fund. What the people don't really know is it's not just $3 million once the casino's built. It's going to be about another $5.5 million. So the town will be getting roughly $8 to $8.5 million a year. We'll have plenty of money to fix any problems that come down the road. Whether it's police officers or schools, if they need it for some reason. But I'm not for locking that money up. And that's what that ordinance was about that we defeated. That money was going to be locked up. That's your money. Okay? That's your money. And it should be able to use that money in town to make things better for us. Not for hiring more union labor, whether it's policemen or school teachers. If we need to, we will, if there's a problem. But I'm not for locking that money up. It's your money, and we'll fix the problem when it comes. We'll be able to do that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bowser.
I was one of the two selectmen who was I was one of the two negotiators from the Board of Selectmen with the first selectman when we were trying to port MMCT to come here. And when we ultimately, as a board, voted 5-0, a sign of unanimity, that we wanted to contract with MMCT, My vote was contingent on the notion that we would do what we could to preserve the way of life here in East Windsor. And we had discussions to that point as a board. And I really think that we ought to be held accountable for that. There is going to be an impact because we host a business of this magnitude. Whatever the business is, there is going to be an impact. We have an opportunity to have the source of the impact pay for the costs that we're going to incur because we host that. Why in the world would we not do that? It just makes all of the sense in the world to have the cause of the issues pay for the issues. And that's actually developed into the development agreement. So we have the $5.5 or $6 million in property tax revenue. That is property tax revenue, just like everybody in this room pays. And it should be treated like property tax revenue, just like everybody else's check twice a year is. The mitigation money is something different, and it should be used to make sure that we do what we can to preserve our quality of life in this town at this moment. I think we need to keep our word.
Thank you very much. Mr. Szymanski.
As I said in an earlier statement, I was quite shocked that there was not an independent financial impact study done before the town agreed to a sum of money. Because I don't know if that sum of money is not enough to cover the additional expenses the town will have, or there's a lot. I don't know, but we should have had that done. But that horse is already out of the barn. And we should set up some type of a pro forma. There should be meetings set up with the largest agencies that are going to be impacted, like the police, like the fire, and those should get scheduled soon, so that on a monthly basis that there's a meeting with one group and then the following month another group. Okay, what is your plan? As you know it now, what are you going to do? That input should come from them. And if we need to get additional resources to range against that to see if that is correct, like adding the policeman, do we need to do that? I don't think so right yet. I don't think we know where we are with this. I think it's very early on, and I don't know what's been done about thinking about what other circumstances could come up from this. And also, what is the state going to provide, the state police? They're the ones that are getting most of the money out of this. So is there some response from them? Are they going to have troopers assigned from Troop H that will respond? They got enough to do that? There's a lot of things that I think are just are very fluid, and I think we need to wait and see.
Thank you. Mr. Richards.
The question was about the casino in general, wasn't it?
Right.
We got off on
Mitigation.
First of all, with the impact money, I encourage anyone to visit Board of Finance minutes of the last couple of months, last two meetings. We passed a thing that puts this money in a fund that's similar to an open space fund for a developer. And what that means, when I come in and I develop in town and I've got a wetlands, I pay money to the town to buy open space. Thus, I can develop there and they go out and purchase farmland or whatever. And the Board of Finance has already accomplished that in the last two meetings, correct, Kathy? I'm looking at Kathy Pippin, she's on there with me. As far as the casino goes, there is one commission in town that's been active, and that's your Economic Development Commission. I've been attending their meetings for the last 8 months. They did not meet the last 2 months. But up to this point, they've done quite a bit in the getting ready for the casino to come in. Roger, our coordinator, Roger O'Brien has been the town's economic coordinator. He's been involved. The chamber's been involved. One of the things that they've been working on is to create I always get in trouble with letters, a resume for an economic development coordinator. These guys are worth their pennies that we pay them, lots of money. The second thing is you have to remember the casino is the incubator, just as Southern Auto was an incubator. And the key to that is what's going on in Windsor Locks. If you don't know about this stuff, I encourage you to get involved with economic development, find out about the transit-oriented district, find out what we've got planned. And all the committees, planning, zoning, EDC, we've all been working together toward this goal.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Mrs. Nelson.
We talk about preparation. It takes over a year to train a police officer, get them on the road, and then after that, there's like 6 months where they're broken in, ride with somebody. So it's a long process. So I feel that we need to be prepared. Maybe not as many police officers as what were initially requested, but we got to get the ball rolling, people, because as soon as they get the first shovel in the ground, it won't be long, and the officers need to be ready to go. That's it from my point.
Thank you, Mrs. Nelson. Mr. Leach.
Just to correct you, Dale, it's not your fault. It's about a year to put an officer on the ground. That being said, as far as the mitigation fund or the impact fund or whatever we want to call it is, it needs to be separate from the budget. It needs to be its own fund separated from the general fund. And the reason we need to do this is to protect the taxpayer. Yeah, that's what we need to do. We need to make it so that any impacts that we do pay for don't come out of the taxpayer's pocket. It needs to come out of that fund separately. We need to budget for those funds separately again. It's nothing that we don't want to employ it all in the same budgetary process. What we would like to see, or what I would like to see anyway, is that any of the departments, be it the police department, public works, and education, go ahead and budget as they normally do and have a separate budget for impact. So any impact that any of these departments may see can budget for that, use those funds from the impact fund to pay for that, so it doesn't change what we have in place. And it doesn't take money out of the taxpayer's pocket. We can do that similar to what the private duty fund is. The private duty fund for the police department is a fund that's paid for other companies that our officers are hired to work for. So if it's a road job or whatever it is, and we need an officer there with a car there, all the funds that pay for that officer's pay for that term of time, whatever it is paid for out of the private duty fund. And it's strictly out of the private duty fund, and that covers everything that they have in there. So it's going to be their salary, their benefits, all of that is paid for out of that private duty fund. We need to do that in a similar fashion with the mitigation funds and treat it more like a grant. It's not taxpayer dollars. Taxpayers haven't given us this money. We can't use it as an added appropriation. It's not an appropriation. You appropriate money from a past budget. This is something we need to do as a separate issue, treat it more like a grant, and handle it like that.
Thank you very much. We're going to move away from the casino question and...
Mr. Masters, can I just add something that hasn't
Certainly.
come up yet?
So one issue, and I wouldn't interject if this issue, I thought it was going to come up, but one reason to have the funding segregated away from the general fund is because someday it could leave. And if you have staff that is on a specific fund and that fund goes away, it is a whole lot easier to reduce that staff rather than having to go through a whole bunch of collective bargaining processes and procedures where they can point to a $40 million budget, thereabouts. So layoffs, because funding has disappeared, are much, much, much less painful for everybody than having to go through and argue that we do have the ability to pay, we don't have the ability to pay, we have the willingness, we don't have the willingness. It becomes much more cut and dry that if the funding were to go away, so too does the demand for the service, and therefore we don't need to provide that service anymore. Makes sense. If your largest taxpayer by an exponential degree leaves, that lessened impact means lessened demand for services. So there is some pretty conservative wisdom for trying to do it that way. But the bottom line is that we do need to have some sort of a plan. And we're sitting here 8 months later, and we do not have a plan. And that's something that we need to address.
Thank you very much. As I said, we'll come back to some more broad questions about economic development, but I have a very specific question from a resident. And again, it's maybe one of those things you may or may not be able to weigh in on. But the question from the citizen is, how do you feel about the town fully or partially paying for electric lights and fire hydrants at condo complexes? That's way out of my wheelhouse too, so we'll start with Mr. Hall.
I live in a condominium complex. When I joined that complex, joined the association, I knew lights and water, fire hydrants were part of what I had to pay. I believe that that is still my belief, that there is no reason for the town to take that over. Now, people in the association will say we're being double taxed. But we bought into that. That's what we decided we wanted to do. There are lots of benefits in living in an association. There are some shortcomings. This happens to be a shortcoming.
Thank you. Mr. Dearborn.
Well, I kind of believe that, well, as far as the lighting goes, did I lose here or something? As far as the lighting goes, I don't think the town should pay for it. They have way more lighting than they really need. They like all their lights, that's okay. As far as the fire hydrants, I think that's a real safety issue. If there was a fire down the road and they had to go in there and hook into their hydrants in their condominium parks there, then we're going to do that. I think we should pay for the hydrants. Not the lights, but I am for the hydrants.
Thank you. Mr. Bowser.
I agree with Mr. Dearborn. I think that, well, as an example, I'll use Coleman Farms, but when there was a barn fire across the street from Coleman Farms, I don't know, 5, 8 years ago, when the trucks arrived, they plugged into the hydrants that were in Coleman Farms and put out the fire. And I'm pretty sure that the town or the district or whoever was paying the bill at that time did not reimburse the condo association for the use of the water. It's a public safety issue. It just is. So if there is a fire and there is a truck that is supposed to go to put out the fire and it gets there and then it can't put out the fire, well, that's not much of a public service at all. So I agree with Steve.
Thank you. Mr. Szymanski.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page here because in the condominium complex, and you see that the lighting that they have is really custom lighting. It's not like the regular street lights in most places, and those are pretty expensive, and they seem to be closer together. And that's the way they designed it, because they wanted to have that brightness. So I think they should be responsible for that. But regarding the water, that is a safety issue. I think the town should be paying for that.
Thank you. Mr. Richards.
I got to deal with this one time before, and in my opinion, that's not changed. The condominium groups, as Mr. Hoffman said, know what they bought into. They have privileges. They have housing that's closer. They have roads that are not built the same as regular roads. I certainly spent a lot of time trying to give the condo groups an opportunity to prove me wrong. To this date, I've not seen that. And as a matter of fact, what occurred with the Warehouse Point Fire Department goes to prove that it is not a double taxation, that there is taxes out there, there is separate groups that can tax you, and the Warehouse Fire District is a good example. The last question I would have on the hydrants is a question about that we discovered at the Board of Finance. Since most of the hydrants are not located in Broadbrook, whose responsibility are they? And I believe the next Board of Selectmen are going to have to tackle that, because that's about a $900,000 a year cost when you pay for all the hydrants.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Nelson.
I can't believe this. I'm in agreement with both Jason and Steve. Sorry about that. The water issue is a huge safety issue, and I absolutely agree. I agree also with Mr. Szymanski. The lights are very decorative, and they're close together, and there's a lot more lights than are what are actually required. So I'm happy with being with Steve and Jason and Mr. Szymanski.
Thank you. Mr. Leach.
Well, I'm nearly the same as Dale, and I'm going to agree with both Steve and Jay on this. We're in agreement. This is great. It's working government. So anyway, but I think what many of the condo owners fail to realize, but Mr. Hoffman is evidence that he's very smart man, and he knows what he got into, and he's aware of what he bought into and what was in that contract. And I think many of the condo owners that brought this issue before the Board of Selectmen previously, which I argued against, but it all boils down to the declaration that the developer had started with. That declaration is a statement of what the developer plans to build and everything that's going to be encompassed in that condo complex, including the lighting, services, fire hydrants, all that. It's all declared in that declaration, and the town bases their decision based on what that declaration is. So decisions are made, and easements are granted, and you're allowed to work within zoning and building issues to be able to build their condos as they wish. So the town grants these easements and whatnot in order to allow them to do that. And knowing that, the condo owner purchases the property. And it's in that contract that they buy it, when they buy this, that these are the things they have to pay for, which comes out of their condo fees, which are lights and hydrants, utilities and stuff like that. It's all there in black and white. So I agree on the fire hydrants. It's a safety issue, and it's something that we need to look at. It's something the incoming board will probably have to deal with and come to a solution with.
Thank you. Mr. King?
I don't know how much more I can add. I'm in agreement with most everyone here. Steve, Jason, Dale, Charlie. I would add that I would certainly welcome these folks to come in and pitch their case as to why they think that the town should pay for the lighting, and promise that we listen to it.
Thank you. Next question, not related to broad development, but specific development. And our citizen asks that today we have funds allocated for senior services, but not for youth services. What would you, perhaps collectively as a board, be able to do to improve town support for our youth? Mr. Dearborn, you're first.
Well, I'm a little disappointed that, the youth services are getting cut. I'm disappointed that the library got cut and other departments got more money again. And I mean, you need a youth center. You need a place for the kids to go. The kids don't have a place to go, you have an issue. Kids will get into trouble. It's just the way it is. They need a place to go. The library, that should have gotten money. It hasn't gotten any money, I believe, in the past 2 years. And that's not right. I used to walk from the grammar school in Broadbrook to that library when I was a little kid going there. You know, single file like a row of ducks, we'd walk down there and get books and things, you know. And this thing needs money. You got to have money for these kind of things, for people, for pleasure. Okay, we seem to have a difficult time doing this in East Windsor. So the finance board, we're sitting up here, we're running for selectmen, but when it all comes right down to it, we don't have much say. Once the finance board gets everything, they go and they make their cuts where they want to cut. We can say what we want, hand it to them, and we go through it, but they've got the final say in the end. So when things get cut, or other departments or agencies in town get a lot of money, it wasn't because of the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Mr. Bowser.
So the question was on making sure that there's funding for youth services, is that correct?
Yes.
So first I'd like to start by congratulating and commending the folks who were involved in the youth center over the last 2 years. They really and truly put their heart and soul into making that work. Recently they shut down because they lost their available space. When they were first conceptually talking about trying to establish a youth center, the town offered to house them in a town-owned building at no cost. I'm hopeful that if they were to come back to us again and say, we still have a passion for trying to make this work, is there opportunity? I would hope that we would be able to find that opportunity for them so that they could keep giving it a go. I also want to recognize and commend the outstanding job that Melissa Maltese does. With a very small staff and a by comparison, a very small budget. She administers more than 70 programs for youths in town over the course of the year. She is worth her weight in gold. So I think that there are opportunities for children in town, and I wouldn't want the conversation to go along a path that suggests that there aren't, because I really do think that Melissa does a great service for us. The other thing that I would add is kind of my grand vision for how our town buildings might co-locate at some point. And I think that leads to additional opportunities. But if and when the opportunity comes up for the town to purchase the Connecticut Children's Place, we should do that. And we should move Town Hall, we should move the Senior Center, we should move the Police Department, we should move Parks and Recreation into that facility, because it's already built like one. It already looks like one. It's right off the highway. It looks like a government building. It would give us an opportunity to jettison some costs of maintaining more buildings than we need to maintain. One of the things that would allow us to do is to have an enhanced senior center, and certainly a community center or a youth center. I mean, there's opportunity if we're ready for it.
Thank you. Mr. Szymanski.
Regarding the youth center, I think all of us here, over years, there's been startups of the youth center, and then it kind of collapses, and one of the issues is a geographical one, that we have kids that are in the Warehouse Point area, and you have some in the Windsorville area, and you have some in Broadbrook. Scannick is really spread out, and for kids to get to the center, somebody's going to drive them. And it's just never been something that galvanized youth in this town. Because I think it would have gotten a lot more support financially and otherwise, but I've not seen that. Should we have it? Yeah, we should have that. There should be some point in somewhere where kids can go, but we need to find out, where is that point? Where is the location that will be good for people to go to? Because someone's got to drive. We have no public transportation here.
Thank you. Mr. Richards.
I've been actually a great supporter of the youth center. What Charlie says is probably true. Location has been the biggest difficulty. I envision at some point what Jason was discussing, it was discussed at the stakeholders meeting. Jason actually came up with it, and I agree with him. If we can ever take over the child center down there, that would be great. I do take reference, though, to a comment in regards to the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance has handed a 4% budget increase this year. A certain group in town has fought all the budgets that have come out. If it's 2.5, if it's 2.10, they've put signs up that are mixed firehouse taxes with town taxes. So I think you need to start looking. When they say that the Board of Finance did a bad job, no, the Board of Finance was left with a mess. The gentleman tonight that mentioned about the Board of Finance has been there one time during the budget season and told us to get rid of the unions. We have nothing to do with the unions. It's the Board of Selectmen that are supposed to be negotiating these things. So let's put the thing where it belongs. If you hand me a 4% budget and the community's asking for less than 2%, yes, something's going to get cut. Paul Anderson, Broadbrook Library, how many went to the tag sales in the last couple of weeks? I have. So how many have been out looking for spots for the youth center? How many people in this room? So before you cast doubt on the Board of Finance, I would encourage you to look at what your Board of Finance has done for you and what your Board of Selectmen has not in the last 2 years.
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson.
From attending the Board of Ed meetings, there's a group, Melissa Maltese, again, Tamara and the Board of Ed are looking at a student bureau. What they have to do is, this has to go through Chris Davis, which he's already approved, but it's $14,000. Now, I know it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but we don't have it. The Board of Ed would be able to give in-kind donations of about $7,000. $7,000 would have to be funded out of the town. I don't think that's a lot of money, but so that is something that they are looking at and reaching out for. Because the state doesn't have a budget, we can't get any money. So that's another issue. And I think, again, to Jason's point about Melissa, she's just phenomenal, and she serves on all these other committees and goes like an unsung hero. So thank you, Jason, for bringing that up.
Thank you. Mr. Leach.
Serving on Park and Rec, I also took Melissa's horn. She does a great job, and she's worth her weight in everything that we bear. But I would like to add that I would also like to commend Wendy and all of her people that have worked so hard to bring the youth center together. And I hope soon they can find a future. But something we need to look at though is and it's all due to budgeting, the obligations of government. So what do we have? It's public safety, infrastructure, and education. Those we need to fund fully. I don't think anybody would argue that point. But at some point, we have to start looking with a 2% provision at what we can cut. We can't afford to, which sounds so unfortunate, we can't afford to spend money on the youth center simply because of the budgeting process that we have. We have to have a serious discussion one day about our charter in the 2% provision. The current situation with the youth center, I think if they had started and took a little more time and developed maybe a business plan similar to what Scout Hall has of their own here. This is a 501(c) organization that leases this building for the town and is sustainable. And I think maybe the youth center with some more work and guidance should be able to work towards that goal, become a 501(c) and work on a sustainable business plan. It's something we can look at. Here again, being involved in youth programs, my Boy Scout troop is here tonight. There's other programs available. You don't have to use just the youth center. If anybody was looking at just the youth center for their children to go to, there's many other programs. There's scouting, there's sports, there's a lot of things that you can find here in town. Check with Park and Rec, there's a lot of programs they have available there. There's a lot you can do if you look, but it's unfortunate.
Thank you very much. Mr. King.
Yeah, so I listen to NPR when I drive into work in the morning, and as they so often say, they hope you learn something new. And one of the things I learned this morning is that we have an office of broadband in the state, and it's very small, and it just survived, even though it was due to be whacked the previous two budgets. But it has come in, and something that I would look at, and I didn't realize because it's been quite some time since I've been in school, is that nowadays kids have to they submit their homework online. And access to broadband is vital for our students and our youth. And right next door in East Hartford, they have brought broadband and fiber wire to every location in the city for free. No cost to the taxpayers. And that was done through the Office of Broadband, just saved in state budget. So I would say we probably need to immediately reach out to them and see how we can work to bring that to East Windsor.
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman.
It appears to me as if there are small budget items, like the youth center and the library in Broadbrook, that get caught up in large budget deliberations. And I know that the Finance Committee has a difficult job. It's never easy to satisfy everybody when you've got a cut budget. However, I think if I had been there, I would have tried to have shaved some of the 1,000-pound gorillas, a few $1,000s, in order to allow these to survive. The other thing that we have to recognize is times change. It may be time to place the youth center under the Park and Rec department. It may be time to place the Broadbrook Library under the town library in Warehouse Point. That'll be tough. Those kind of decisions are not easy. The people who work hard to make those things happen will not be happy, but it may be the better solution.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have one large set of questions about economic development that I'm going to kind of mash together. and then 2 smaller but very specific questions, and that'll kind of bring to a close our forum tonight. So unless you have another question you'd like to get out to Kathy or Rich, you might want to do that now. So a mashup of questions about economic development. One of our citizens writes, they're building everywhere in South Windsor and Enfield, but we see nothing built on Route 140 or Route 5 or new buildings in the industrial park. What do you propose to do to find out why that's happening and fix that problem? We need to help East Windsor develop economically, yet keep our small town flavor. There's a lot loaded in that question. Mr. Bowser, you're first.
All right, I think I got it all. But,
Okay, I can always rephrase it.
Yeah, please, I think I got it, but if I miss a part, I'm happy to fill in the blanks here. So one of the things that surrounding towns are doing that East Windsor for a long, long time has been a little hesitant to do is they're offering tax breaks for economic development options. That is both a good strategy on the part of those towns that are doing it, and also something that we're hesitant to do for good reason. We did it 15 or 20 years ago when we were trying to, and I'm not sure who it was. I think it was when Hamilton had a presence here, and we got burned. So we offered a tax break, and before the phase-in was complete, the circumstances changed, and we never really saw the economic benefit of that. That you know, once bitten, twice shy, that makes you a little skittish for sure. But watching what's going on in South Windsor in particular, they are on fire. And in other surrounding towns, that's the substantial differences. They offer tax breaks, and that is attractive. So over the last 2 years, we have put in place mechanisms through a municipal ordinance that allows us to do that. We're in the process of actually utilizing that for the first company who's asked. And I expect that when that comes to fruition, we will do that. The difference is this time in that ordinance, there is, I believe, provision so that we can claw back the benefit that we offer if we don't realize, if the deal doesn't come to fruition. So that's kind of a lesson learned from past history, but also looking to see what others are doing well, taking advantage of that. The small town flavor is certainly something that you know, we've talked about at these forums in the past, but is important. We have infrastructure in place to support economic development, certainly along 140 and along Route 5, but we also have areas of town where we really don't want to see economic development. I don't want to see a strip mall in Melrose or a big box store in Windsorville. There are tools available for us to make sure that we are you know, implementing the concepts of smart growth and building where we should and protecting where we also should protect. So that, I had tax breaks and small town flavor. What was the other piece?
Well, it's growth in general, but that's good.
I covered that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Szymanski.
The issue has been that there's been no investment. Ian Kaufman talked about this, that we have an economic development commission. I've been on that commission. We really didn't do a lot because you really didn't have things that you could do. It really takes a business development person to bring on to the town, as they have in other towns, and that's an expense where they know the ins and outs of who is going to be moving, who's looking for a site. Those things are all done way, way in advance of them making an offer to a town that they'd like to come there, just like Amazon. We need to invest in that. We need to invest in that quickly. Because when you look at this town, you know, everybody always says location, location, location is what is worthwhile and where the value is. And we have the location. We're on Interstate 91. We're very close to the airport. We have Route 5 going through town. And the development for these areas in 140, in the business district, those things are pretty big. But we need to get someone that is the professional that will be able to know what the laws are, who's moving, and what would be the enticement for them to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Richards.
Boy, asking questions I love. First of all, those incentives that have been put in place were actually started at EDC. Charlie ought to come by and see the commission now. They're a lot better further along. They've also been dealing with Roger O'Brien. where we got a few dollars from the town, and Roger stepped in, and he was very active in the casino. When we thought the casino was gone, Roger said to EDC, "It isn't gone, Jim, we need to continue on." And we did, so we got the casino. The plan of conservation and development covers all of the economic things that we're discussing. How do we keep the small town like it is? But the best guy that ever taught me that was Emil Molnine. I spent a summer with Emil Molnine, and Emil told me about the industrial park and how a bunch of farmers got together and they all put money in and they built the industrial park, and then they handed it over to the town or to the developers. Boom. And that's how it works. And Charlie's absolutely right. We've got 140, we've got Route 5. Both of those corridors are going to be, hopefully with the incubators that we keep putting in place and the work that we're doing, hopefully all of that will come together, tie it in with the Windsor Locks transit district-oriented development situation. Yeah, thanks. It's all those letters make me crazy. And I encourage anyone that wants to know how many commissions and how many people have been working together, be quietly behind the scenes. Take a look at your plan of conservation and development. It will tell you exactly what I'm saying.
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson.
I think you read my notes.
You cheated on me. You were asking.
Because I have plan of conservation development and the TOD. Those are two things that, the plan of conservation development is our 10-year plan for what goes on here in town. We have one. It was just updated. Thank you, Lori. And the commission that did that, but it's there. So we can't, you can only build and you can only put certain things in certain areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leach.
I can't really expound on it a whole lot. Charlie has covered most of the ground here, and I think Jim has, and Dale too. With EDC, we don't have the funds to hire a professional and actually get business to begin to look at East Windsor as a viable place. And until we make some hard decisions in order to make that happen, it's going to continue to be that way.
Thank you.
There again, that's where that serious discussion about our charter and 2% provision really needs to look at. These are just things that fall by the wayside that we just keep continuing to gentrify here in East Windsor.
Thank you. Mr. King.
So tax incentives across the country are a hot topic, especially with Amazon and their HQ2. One of the things we're learning, though, is that the highest tax incentive isn't winning. And naturally, with this, we've especially learned here in this state, tax incentives can backfire, and the devil's always going to be in the details. One of the things, though, that companies are looking for, where I think we have an opportunity, is it's not necessarily the tax break, but how quickly we're going to be able to get that business up and running. They don't want to have to go through 8 or 10 or 12 boards. They want it to be efficient, and saving them 6 months, 4 months in the development of their business is worth more to them than a tax break. So I think that's where we could look to try to get all of the different boards and commissions that we have working together and be able to promise businesses that come in, hey, we're going to get you through this in meetings, we're going to save you on legal costs, because we're going to be able to put all the people you need to see in one room as few times as possible. So, and obviously, we do have a great geographic area.
Thank you.
It's been said.
Mr. Hoffman.
I think it goes back to what I said before. I think we will not compete on a level playing field until we have an economic development director. I know that costs money. In talking to the economic development directors in those 3 towns I referenced before, they said you don't have to start out with a full-time person. It has to be a meaningful amount of time. You should not have less than a half-time director. In South Windsor, the economic development director told me that he attends 20 to 40 meetings a year, many of them at night, where economic development is being discussed by government people, where he contacts the people in the Economic Development Commission and knows in advance that a company is looking to relocate in this area or looking to build in this area. We don't have that insight. I was on the intention, but we do not know how to do that. The rest of the story, you know, is a story that we all know. If a town can move quickly, then the potential new company in town likes that. If we had better taxes than normal, and we don't. The other towns around us have about the same taxes, with the exception of South Windsor, they're higher. And tax incentives work in Windsor. They've gotten huge companies to move in there because of incentives.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dearborn.
You know, it all boils down to money again. You know, I'm for the tax incentive, and a lot of people are not for it because of what happened up to Hamilton Standard up on Newberry Road. They got the tax incentive, they came in, they built the building, they moved in. After the tax incentive was over, they moved out. That kind of ticked off a lot of people in town, said we shouldn't do that, and we got screwed. Well, we didn't. What they don't realize is, if the tax incentive wasn't in place, that building wouldn't be standing there today, paying us taxes. And they've got a great school up there now, but the thing of it is, it got them people to build that building in an area that was pretty rough. It was pretty rough ground up there, and they did it. So I'm for these tax incentives. South Windsor, look at the buildings they just put up down. They put them up overnight. Okay? So you give them a tax incentive, but down the road, they're going to have to pay those taxes. They're going to have to start paying. So that's how you're going to get people here. You know, and with the casino now almost here, things are moving forward. People are buying land here to build new things because the casino is coming. All right, that casino is going to make us fly like we've never flown before. And I said, we're making history here. And you know, we really don't have enough room for the growth. We got Route 5 and 140. And it's not going to be enough room. So things are going to have to be planned out, put things in the right place on these roads, and get the most for our dollar here.
Thank you very much. Question? There's 2 questions left. We're pushing a lot of time ahead. We want to make sure we get people home at a reasonable hour. But these are 2 important questions, I think. Our citizen rights. I've been listening to this debate, and many of you have supported many different spending increases. How do you intend to do some of these things on a 2% budget? Mr. Szymanski, you get the honor on that one.
That's the easiest question. Well, when we say 2%, it's 2% overall, but not everybody gets 2%. And when you look at and start to drill down into each one of the components that's getting a budget, and what is obligated and what is discretionary, what is anticipated and what is a wish. And I know nobody turns in budgets that are overinflated, but there are 6% budgets, and you look at those, and they're probably the larger of the budgets that go in. I think we need to look at the education budget, the Board of Education budget. When I see the great decline in the numbers of students over time, that all total is only 1,000 within the school system, what ways can you do something different there? That there's an assistant principal in each school. And is that required when you have so many fewer students? Can an assistant principal do 3 schools? Reports to one day, go to another one the next day? And you know, in the sales world, when sales decline And you have sales managers that they're just managing people, that they drop down, they start to cut the sales managers and just let the salespeople go out there and work and have the sales manager manage more people. I don't think it's so different there. I know there's different issues, obviously, but looking at those budgets, I think that, again, it's not 2% flat across the board. So there is a way to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Richards.
I've always said that when you start with the subject matter and it's not right or it's tainted, you end up with stuff that's not good at the end. The 2% of the charter is tainted. It's a number that somebody pulled out of the air and stuck in there. It's not based on a grand list, it's not based on this, it's not based on that. So I think where we discussed it tonight, and the problem with charter changes is you need to find a way to do it. But the 2% that's sitting on that budget is what causes us not to have money. The second thing is when citizens say, we want to cut this and we want to change that, they come to meetings, they say that, but they don't have a plan. And I think that's the biggest problem that we had on Board of Finance. People would come in and say, oh, well, we want to cut this today, and we need this out, and you need to fix that. And it's like, well, what would you do for those people? What would you do for the seniors if we didn't have senior services? What would you do for the special ed students that have moved to town and we don't have enough money to pay for it? What would you do if you call the police and someone's breaking into your house and there ain't no cop? Well, some of us could probably shoot him, but I'm saying, what would you do? I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. We've got a medium income. It's probably hopefully gone up a little bit from the last time I looked. It's about $33,000 to $35,000. That's our medium income in town. You go to the surrounding town where you have a bunch of services, it's a higher income. Housing, real estate, etc. You need to look at the whole picture of what our revenue flow is. And when you see what it is, we either have to keep with the 2% that someone went, oh, that looks good, let's throw it in there. Or find a way to be able to gauge these things.
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson.
You talked about the 2%. That's a whole 18-month process. You have to choose a committee. They have up to 18 months to do the charter. So that's going to put us into 2 budget seasons from now at best. What can we do in the meantime? Well, the BOE budget changed. The Board of Ed gets their money and they fight for it, but they get to spend it any way they want. That's their money. So we can't dictate to them what to do with it. I'm a firm believer that we need to pay for services, but we can't get a budget passed, so I guess we go without the services. Sorry, but thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leach.
I think the best thing we can do would be to help to educate the voters. I proposed it last year at the Board of Finance, if we could come up with something similar to what Windsor has in their budget, where each line item has either a sentence or abbreviated sentence of the description of what it is and what it does. We don't know that here at East Windsor. We put up the budget, it sits on the town website, you download it, and there's probably about 20 sentences and all that explain the budget. It's not enough for the voters to realize what's really in there. And I think it's something where we need to find some way that the Board of Finance or the Board of Selectmen or the town itself can sell the budget to the people to see what's actually in it, what's required to run this town and operate. We keep gentrifying until we're down to where we're cutting important services that we just can't afford to have. It's a shame, and I don't know any other way to solve it other than to help educate the voters.
Thank you very much. Mr. King.
So, unfortunately, the 2% budget increase is what we have to live with right now. And that's one of the reasons why I focus most of my comments and my introduction on innovation. You know, one of the most important things that this board can do is bring innovation, because we are asked to provide more services without going over that 2%. And that's difficult, and it requires you to think outside the box. So the idea is like, perhaps we can't give more money to Broadway Library, but if we can get someone to bring their broadband internet for free, that's a way to increase service in the town without increasing cost. We need to be more innovative, and this will also, as everyone has mentioned, the casino is coming, and we not make mistakes that will drive out business. We are going to have a will and plan list. We're going to have more businesses with a desire to come into this town. We need to make sure that we can do what we can to accommodate them and make this a desirable place for them to conduct their business.
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman.
I view the 2% as a safety net. It's too darn bad that every single year we have to use the safety net. I think that's wrong. The cost of doing business, running a town, costs more than 2% each year. What I would like to see is, I would like to see that the budget is laid out on a line item basis, and that the voters have an opportunity to vote yes or no on each line item. I have a friend up in Maine, Wisconsin, and they have 20 line items on their budget each year. I would rather see that, but in lieu of that, I think you have to have, some base, and the 2% what we're doing right now, I do believe it's wrong. I think that the town should vote based on need, and it seems like we just go out and vote 3 times until it finally ends up at 2%. There's something wrong with that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dearborn.
Well, I'm in favor of the 2%, and I think it's a safety net. I mean, you heard what the average income in this town is, and the people, we don't make a lot of money here. So you've got to have something to protect these people. We have a lot of elderly living in East Windsor, a lot of old farm people that still live in East Windsor. Okay? We don't have a lot of young people living in East Windsor. So there's got to be something there to protect these people from having their taxes go crazy here. And I mean, I am for it, but like with things that are going to happen down the road, a couple of years from now, all this stuff we should be able to solve it. If I remember correctly, at the beginning of my 2 years that I'm in now, I kept talking about it a few meetings. Let's get the Charter Revision Commission started. Let's get going on it. We need to change some things. Every time we got shot down, they said, no, we shouldn't do that until we have a major election, so more people come out and vote for this thing. Well, I guess we're going to wait till the next presidential election before we do this. This should be started now. We should start it right away and change some things. But I'm for that 2% right now. But like I said, down the road, things really get flying here. We should have enough money to take care of any needs that we have in this town. Because $8.5 million a year, that's a lot of money. That's the jackpot. We hit the jackpot here. So I'm for the 2% right now anyway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bosler.
So, just a point of clarification before this misstatement becomes fact. According to the Connecticut Economic Resource Center's most recent analysis of the median household income in East Windsor, it's closer to $70,000 than it is to $34,000. The other real number? It's $72,866. That's the median household income according to the Connecticut Economic Resource Center. So we just need to make sure that that's out there. The second point is in living within the 2% budget, and why the 2% budget is a disadvantage to the town is because it only speaks to a 2% spending increase. It does not speak at all to the revenue side of the budget. So, for example, this year we had less revenue from the state than we had expected, and our budget went up by about, I think it was 1.86%, but it was about 2%, regardless of whether or not our revenues increased. So we saw a pretty good sized tax increase for a nominal spending increase. The other side of that coin would be if the casino does come to fruition, we're going to get just a boatload of extra revenue, and we're going to increase our spending by 2%. regardless of the fact that we have more revenue now than we did before. So the system as it's set up is broken and was badly designed to begin with. But it is the system that we're living under. So you need to start by looking at what do you have to spend on. First, you have to spend on contractual obligations. That is the law. Second, you have to spend on fixed obligations like electricity or water or fire hydrants. You have to spend on those things. That is a fixed cost. And then you need to look at the mandates that we have to live under that are placed on us by the federal government and by the state government. And if you factor those things in, before too long, there really is not a lot of wiggle room. So to try and implement all of the great ideas that have been thrown out tonight, and still live within the sliver of the 2% that you have to accomplish anything, it becomes very much a situation where you have to pick winners and losers, and that's really unfortunate. And the number of hours that the Board of Selectmen, but more so the Board of Finance, put into crafting the budget every year, only to have funny math stuffed in people's mailboxes that illustrate inaccurate information, is really a disservice to the people who live in this town, and particularly the people who put the budgets together.
Thank you very much. We have reached about our natural time for expiration. I would encourage people, if they have additional questions that they'd like to ask our candidates, to stay after and meet with them, because I'm sure they'll be happy to answer those questions. But at this point, we'd like to move on to closing statements. And since we started with Mr. Szymanski, we'll start at the far end of the table with Mr. Bowser. You have 2 minutes for your closing statements. Please keep an eye on the cards so we can get through everyone tonight. Thank you.
Well, I won't use all of the 2 minutes, but I just want to say that I have enjoyed my opportunity to serve the community. I think that I have something positive to contribute. I think that I have a base of knowledge and a skill set that's valuable at the local level, particularly in citizen democracy. If reelected, and I hope to be, but if reelected, I'm happy to continue volunteering my time for another 2 years. And I hope that over the last 2 years, the things that we have tried to do and the positions that I have taken have earned me another 2 years to represent you on the Board of Selectmen. So I thank you for the opportunity, and I hope to have your vote on the 7th.
Thank you.
All I want to say to everybody is get out there and vote. Vote with your heart, vote with your minds. Vote who you think is going to do the best job for you. It's important, I think, for us in East Windsor to consider making changes that will make us better. I believe that someone like myself, who is not a member of a party, can fulfill a need in our Board of Selectmen. I have, for a lifetime, in the private sector, had to deal with problems, define them, work them, and fix them. And my view is if we don't do that so good at any level of government, even in our little town. So I'd like to ask you to give me a chance to see if I can do something good for our town. Thank you.
So whenever you do these, there's always a little bit of nervousness. And one of the things that I've really taken from tonight is that it is awesome to have 8 very enthusiastic people out here who are so engaged in our community, willing to do this job and to volunteer on this board. So, I do think that there are, as Jason said, this showed, we actually all agree on many more topics than I thought we would. And that was very nice to see tonight. So, again, I would just say, if you elect me to the board, I hope to bring professionalism, innovation, efficiency, empathy, and integrity. And that's what I ask for your vote.
First, I'd like to thank everybody here that came, and some that have left already, but I thank you for coming and asking us these questions, and for starting the discussion with all of us here. I look forward to maybe eventually serving with people here at this table, and Hope that we can come to solutions, and I'm sure we can work toward them. But the voters in this town have a decision to make. And so November 7th, you can either decide to move forward and we either change direction and we work towards producing results, or we can continue to make the same mistakes we've made and take a wait-and-see approach and see what happens. I'm just here to tell you one more time, don't just hope for change, vote for it. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everybody who came out tonight, who spent the last couple of hours with us, who also gave us some innovative questions. Hope we answered them to the best of our ability. I'm looking forward to spending another 2 years on the Board of Selectmen. I don't think that the work that we've gotten done in these past 2 years is enough. We need to continue that work, and I'd like to be part of it, so I ask for your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
I'm just kind of excited that the median income has gone up to 72. Too many years doing some of the same things, unfortunately. I have two things I'd like to end with. One is vote for me, obviously, and thank you for being here tonight. The other is, it is the townwide harvest for the hungry going on right now for the 5-corner cupboard, the stockpot kitchen. Many businesses are taking donations. The latest report, and I did get this recently, so I won't be too far off, but the 5-corner cupboard has actually had an increase in customers or clients, which means need. So I encourage everyone, if you can, drop a check to them, drop a can off at a business. There's drop points all over town, and remember, there's no one season for hunger, and we've got neighbors that are hungry and kids that are hungry, so please donate. Thank you.
To reiterate what others have said, thanks so much for staying with us tonight. It's just a couple of hours, but I think a lot of people learned a lot. My ambition here is that my family and I have enjoyed and had a good life here in East Windsor. And if I can give back some of that in volunteering for this position, if you think there's a change that should be made, should be needed now, to change a little course of direction of where we are with this casino and all these big things that are going on, then vote for me. I have that business experience, a vast business experience, that I think can help this process and bring about more efficiencies than where we are today, and most importantly, the cohesiveness of the board, which is critically important.
All right, that brings our program to a close. Can we just give a nice round of applause for all of our candidates and their time tonight? Again, the committee would encourage you, if you have additional questions that you'd like to ask of the candidates, specific questions you'd like to pose to them, please feel free to approach them before they leave the building and ask them those questions. Thank you very much for coming out tonight.